quotes, infused with the scent of potpourri. The films we commit to memory, crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find more of our work at obsessiveviewer.com, and while every episode will always be free, if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can find tons and tons of bonus audio content, including TV and book reviews, immediate reaction movie reviews, Patreon potpourri episodes, movie commentary tracks, and much, much more. Now that we're headed into awards season and kind of the end of the year catch-up viewing season, on Patreon, I'm going to be starting in an FYC potpourri series of episodes for the $5 and above member tiers. In those episodes, I'm going to be reviewing groups of movies I watched during the run-up to the IFJA Critics Group's awards deadline in December. So if this is your first time listening, I'm a member of the Indiana Film Journalists Association. Every year, the group gets together and nominates and selects winners for a bunch of different categories for our end-of-year awards. And so at the end of the year, I watch as many movies as I can, nominate as many movies as I want to, and hash it out with the group. So as part of that process, I'm going to be doing potpourri episodes where I take probably 4 movies each episode and talk about them as I watch them, or after I watch them rather. So that is on Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I also have a ton of other stuff on there, so consider checking it out. I also have a Patreon shop on there where you can get individual things grouped together. So like I have my Dark Season 1 reviews all packaged together, Stephen King commentary tracks all packaged together, all of that stuff. So once again, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find me on social media, including Letterboxd at obsessiveviewer. And today on the show, we're doing something a little bit different. Usually I have my co-host Tiny or one of our recurring co-hosts joining me, or I have a guest or two. But I want to commit to doing weekly episodes of the show for as long as I can. So I'm going to kind of try to do that. Now that we've reached the milestone of 400 episodes, I'm going to try to do weekly installments, weekly episodes of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. And as such, in the weeks where I either can't secure another voice or a guest, or in the weeks that my schedule is limited, I'm going to just record solo episodes. So consider it as kind of a new era for the podcast, and we'll see how this goes. It could be a disaster. It could be very good. Who knows? But basically, that is the current direction of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. And each of those weeks, it's probably going to be like what we've been doing for years now at this point. I'm going to structure them as hopefully two new release movies reviewed each episode, with possibly a potpourri section at the end of the episode. Usually the two movies we review are going to be one in theaters, one available on streaming. We'll see how that works out or what have you. But anyway, that's what is going to be happening going forward on the Obsessive Viewer podcast. I'm excited. And so welcome to the show. In this week's episode 401, I'll be reviewing the new MCU movie, the 33rd movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, The Marvels, which is directed by Nia DaCosta. That is coming out in theaters this week. And I'm going to be reviewing it in a non-spoiler and then a spoiler review. If you want to be wary of spoilers, check the show notes for timestamps. You can find those show notes in your podcast app or at obsessiveviewer.com/OV401. And I will be concluding the episode with a review of Quiz Lady, which is a comedy that is currently streaming on Hulu. And yeah, so that's the rundown for the episode. That's what we're going to be doing this week on The Obsessive Viewer. And before we get to our reviews, I do have a couple of news pieces to bring up, really just a couple of things. One is our old friend JP Leck, he of Shocktober fame. Years ago, we would do Shocktober in Irvington. JP always had a short film. He has this whole expansive universe of novels and books and comic books and short films and radio plays, all of these things. He has a film that is out right now on Amazon Prime. You can rent it or buy it. It's called Circle City Supernatural. And I highly recommend it just on the fact that it's JP Leck. He is someone who is very passionate about his art and very passionate about the universe that he's created and all of the things that he does. It's great. I actually had the honor of lending my voice in some of his work, and I'm very, very grateful for that. So, Circle City Supernatural. The plot summary is: the calls to Lindsay Malin's late night paranormal radio show are going from strange to stranger as the people of Circle City confront the supernatural in this Halloween themed anthology. So if you're in that kind of post-October Halloween hangover zone, check out Circle City Supernatural. Like I said, I'm just a huge fan of JP Leck. We love him here at The Obsessive Viewer, so check out Circle City Supernatural. And the other piece of news that I have is something that I don't have a lot of detail about because it literally just broke 45 minutes ago and all the details haven't actually been announced. But the strike is officially over. SAG-AFTRA and the studios have reached a deal for a tentative deal for a new 3-year contract. I don't know the details of it. I don't think those details have been announced yet or anything, but basically, if all goes as planned, as of this recording tonight at midnight Pacific time, the new deal is going to be enacted. Everything is going to be the strike will be over. People will be able to get back to work immediately, almost immediately, it seems, and things should get back to normal over in Hollyweird. So that is exciting. We haven't really done anything in terms of covering the strike or talking about the strike. Frankly, it's stuff that is not necessarily over my head, but it's with these things, they go on for so long that it just you kind of run out of things to talk about with it and everything. And plus, I'm over trying to explain to people why labor strikes like this matter, because I am aware of people being well, why are all the rich Hollywood assholes being gatekeeping their work or whatever? Why are they disrupting it and everything? It's because they're not getting paid adequately. It's not rocket science. It's not every actor in SAG-AFTRA is Tom Cruise. Not every actor is Chris Pratt or any other person who has questionable religious leanings, but they're not all millionaires and billionaires. Get your head out of your ass. It's ridiculous. There are people that work as actors, are working actors who cannot, it's a whole thing. I don't want to go on a tangent, but anyway, the strike is over. Hopefully it's a good deal for them. And hopefully everything kind of pans out over there. I will say, and this is something that is, I don't know what it'll be, but basically, I haven't been someone who has thought okay, well, should we stop covering new movies on the podcast or on the website or on social media or anything in solidarity with the strike? I am not someone who fell into that kind of line of thinking, specifically because the people who kind of think that the people who are more prone to being someone who is going to be like crossing the picket line for the studios in that regard are the people who would have been offered to go to premieres and cover premieres and everything in place of actors. Like, it's not the same as, you know, in my eyes, it's not the same as getting like going to a press screening for a movie as it's about to be released. That's not the same as promoting the movie, because you're literally just covering the movie. And I say that, but I did have the thought. I went to a press screening last night for The Marvels, which is why I'm recording this now. And I had the thought today. I was like, the embargo lifts today. I am planning on recording an episode of the podcast, but I should throw something up on TikTok, just giving my thoughts and everything. And then I thought, here's the thing. So I have been making a lot of TikToks, and the username on TikTok is OV Podcasts. Go follow it, please, and share my stuff and like it and everything. I do a whole bunch of stuff there. But anyway, I'm fairly new to TikTok, and a part of me is a little afraid of getting canceled, not canceled per se, but getting like, if something goes viral of mine, I don't want it to be for someone dragging me for any number of reasons. Like, that's just something I don't want to happen. And I just had this thought when I was thinking about making a TikTok video about the Marvels. I was thinking, like, what if this is construed as promoting the movie for Marvel Studios while the actors are on strike? Like, what if this is construed that way, and is that, which is a ridiculous thing to think, but I don't know. I've seen people dragged for less and gain a level of notoriety for less, I guess. But I don't know. TikTok is weird. It's a weird beast. It's something. I'm enjoying the content that I'm making on there, but I don't know. Like, I'm enjoying the content that I'm making on there, and super not enjoying the fact that they always get like 230 views and then nothing. So anyway, follow me on TikTok, you guys. I would really, really appreciate it, and share it around. So that's all the news that I have, and all the tangents I have up top here. So, let's go into my first review of the evening, which is for The Marvels. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a non-spoiler review and then transition over to a spoiler review, during which I will play a clip from the trailer to signal that I'm going into spoilers. If you want to navigate timestamps, like I said, obsessiveviewer.com/OV401. So, The Marvels. Like I said, it is the 33rd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is Carol Danvers gets her powers entangled with those of Kamala Khan and Monica Rambeau, forcing them to work together to save the universe. Director for this movie was Nia DaCosta, who previously directed Candyman in 2021, and writers were Nia DaCosta, Megan McDonnell, and Alyssa Karasek. And the cast includes, of course, Brie Larson, Teyana Paris, Iman Vellani, Samuel L. Jackson, and Zawe Ashton. That is the rundown for The Marvels. It is currently in theaters as of this weekend, and let me go ahead and talk about it in non-spoilers. And I will say up front that I did post an immediate reaction review on Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. That is my 47th, I think, immediate reaction recording I've done this year. I do immediate reaction recordings for basically any new release movie that I see in throughout the year. It was my 44th immediate reaction recording this year. So check that out. That's at the $2 level. Anyway, my expectations going in to The Marvels. I was not that excited. And I say that as someone who enjoyed Captain Marvel quite a bit, and someone who finds the concept of this like entanglement of powers pretty interesting. And I found it, like, from judging from the trailers, I thought that it would have been a really interesting way to kind of swap out powers and everything, or swap people in action set pieces. But still, ever since Endgame, I feel like the MCU has just been, and this is a common thing. I'm sorry if I'm just rehashing common internet internet rhetoric and everything, but basically, since Endgame, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been struggling. And I say that as someone who was very interested in the multiverse saga, as like the hope of it, the dream of it, the potential of it. And I feel like throughout this entire year, I have just been so disengaged with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The exception being Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I loved and will likely make my top 10 list at the beginning of the year. But I have not felt a push to watch any of the Disney Plus stuff. I have not, like, I'm still washing the kind of bad taste of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania out of my mouth, because that movie, I had such high hopes for it, because I thought that Kang the Conqueror was going to be the focal point of the movie, which he kind of was, and I was hoping that it would be the big introduction of him, but it just felt... It felt like the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't know what it's doing with the multiverse saga and the multiverse concept. And that's what I can't get away from. And other entries in these like past phases of the multiverse saga, I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder, it was all borderline terrible. Like it was horrible. It was really, really bad. And like another kind of exception is Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but even then, I think that it's a combination of the Marvel machine pumping out way too much content post Endgame between Disney Plus series and mediocre or subpar film entries. Just here alone this year, we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We've got the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now the Marvels. We also had Secret Invasion, I think was late last year. I'd never watched it. We have Loki Season 2. I still haven't watched that. We just are inundated with a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff doesn't play in or factor into the multiverse stuff. Other things factor into the multiverse storytelling, but it always seems like the multiverse part of it is periphery. It is secondary, or it is not the focal part of it. So movies like Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man No Way Home, those kind of stand out because they play into the multiverse concept and make it the focal point. But movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, they don't, like the concept is there, but it's more like I remember coming out of Quantumania and thinking that, yeah, okay, so James Gunn is leaving, Guardians of the Galaxy is like kind of being sent off with Volume 3, so now Marvel Studios wants to have something else that is like the kind of Star Wars aesthetic for the MCU, so they just created the entire whatever it's called. I don't even know. Subatomic Place. I don't remember, because we've been inundated with so much stuff from the Marvel machine that it's just hard to keep track of it, hard to keep interest in it. And so it's a bummer. It's really a bummer, because they did so well with the Infinity Saga. Not to say it was perfect, but they ended it as perfectly as they could, in my opinion. That, like, Endgame is still just the crowning achievement in Marvel Studios. But yeah, so all of that's to say that, and here's the thing, I've ranted and said all of this stuff, and I just, as I was about to transition into my next point, I remembered that Eternals exists. Like, that movie did nothing for me, and it's just so weird to me that this juggernaut of a shared universe can crumble so quickly, and just like at the turn of a door frame, basically, into the multiverse saga. Like, it feels like there's no cohesion, there's no coherent like template, or not even template, but outline. Like, it just feels like they're just throwing multiverse stuff at the wall to make it seem like, multiverse storytelling. It doesn't seem like there is a cohesive thing. Whereas with like the Infinity Saga, we had like a set number of Infinity Stones that we knew were out there and Thanos was looking for. We would get little bits and pieces of Thanos that some of them didn't really connect or didn't really make much sense, but he was still present throughout each entry. And a lot of those entries, like, directly related to one of the Infinity Stones, which is great. That was good. That was effective. Now they're going into multiverse stuff, which is huge, expansive. It is massive, and it just feels like there's nothing to ground it into making it cohesive among everything that they're doing. And it just feels like vignettes that don't connect to anything at all together. It's weird. I don't like it. So anyway, all that's to say, didn't really have too high of hopes for the Marvels. And I had also read that there was issues with the production. From what I heard, per Variety, I think it was in that big write-up about the MCU, but I'm quoting here from IMDb. Director Nia DaCosta left during post-production, with the film still months from completion, to begin pre-production on her next film, Hedda. And that is something that is, in addition to her not being present for post-production or for a size of post-production, I believe that the strikes happened and it prevented them from doing like reshoots and everything. So I went into this movie kind of expecting a train wreck, to be honest. That, in addition to the announcement that the runtime was 1 hour and 45 minutes, it is the shortest MCU film to date, that made me a little bit hesitant. So that's the frame of mind I came into. I was kind of expecting a mess, especially since, like, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I thought one of the big issues with that movie was just it looked atrocious in some scenes. Like, the visual effects were clearly not finished or up to par, and a lot of that is due to Disney, like, infamously, like, underpaying or working their VFX team like very, very, very hard and putting unrealistic expectations on them. So of course they're going to receive an inferior product because it's just not possible for them to work under those conditions and with those deadlines. So with productions being stretched thin or post-production being stretched thin and encountering issues with striking workforces and everything, I was expecting the Marvels to be a train wreck. And I will say, and here we go with my actual thoughts on the movie, 23 minutes into the episode. I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought it was very, very, very pleasant. I was very pleasantly surprised with how enjoyable this was. It was much better than I expected. It is this very energetic and despite some pretty dark things that happen, it is kind of this light and fluffy sort of entry in the MCU. It is this kind of fun, there's this fun sense of wonderment to it that I think works really, really well and surprisingly well, because we've gone through in the MCU so many things, so much like trauma. In particular, like, this is one of the things that one of the standouts of, not even standouts of Eternals, but one of the things that I can remember about Eternals is that I remember having the thought that, like, yeah, okay, this is interesting that when they talk about the blip in the MCU, like, this is a universal, like, trauma that everyone in this universe has experienced. And that is something that is very, very dark and very bleak, really. And having that kind of be something that is positioned going into the next phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's clearly going to lead to some pretty dark storytelling, some pretty bleak things, like WandaVision, for as energetic and kind of whimsical and fanciful I don't know, fantasy aspects of it, as wonderful and literally wonderful, or what have you, as WandaVision was at its heart. It is a very dark story. It is a very bleak story about this woman grieving, and how she's processing what happened in Infinity War. It's bleak. It's bleak. So to have the Marvels, while it does have some very dark stuff in it, have it be this light and fun, energetic thing, it kind of feels like, it feels like a breath of fresh air, honestly. It really does. Like, even Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 had some very, very heavy themes to it as well. So having this be about like three superheroes teaming up, one of which, here's the thing also, right up top, I will say that one of my other reservations about this movie was I was afraid that I would have had to have watched Secret Invasion and Ms. Marvel, because I hadn't seen either of those shows. I am here to tell you that it is very fortunate that you do not need to have those shows in your mind. Like, they don't factor into the plot. They do a nice recap that's pretty evocative and cool at the beginning of the movie that kind of reintroduces us to Ms. Marvel. And then the Nick Fury stuff doesn't really reference that I could detect Secret Invasion at all. So you don't need to know what happens in those shows. So that's relief. But the energy of it, that light and fluffy energy, is what I keep saying for some reason. But that energy is so refreshing, specifically because we're coming off of, like I said, all of the bleak trauma of the blip and Endgame and everything. So yeah, it's really, really energetic here. And the brisk pace of it, it's an hour and 45 minutes. It does kind of feel a little bit long in parts, even at that runtime, but it is structured pretty well, in my opinion. Especially when it comes to the entanglement of the powers and everything. It's pretty well structured in terms of introducing the concept by having this chaotic kind of discovery of their powers being entangled. So all three of them are in different places, across space. And it happens when they use their powers simultaneously, they swap. And so we have like a teenager from Jersey suddenly in space, and it's really interesting the way it explores that chaotic way that they discover it and everything. That's really fun and entertaining. And then from there, they work through it. They figure out there's a whole plot and everything, obviously, that they need to do. There's a villain that they need to defeat. All of that, I'll get to that in my review shortly. But when they work through what is happening to them and what can happen with them, and how they can entangle their powers and everything, it's a really good escalation, because it introduces some good variety of it. Because at first we have the first act, we have that chaotic discovery of the entanglement, and then we have them haphazardly working through it in a kind of improvised way, and then we have later in the movie them working together as a team, and it's really cool. It's really inventive. There's some pretty good utilizations of that. Also, Ms. Marvel as a character, her powers, in the movie there, they describe all of their powers having to do with light. I don't know, Monica Rambeau can see light or something. I don't know, but anyway, Kamala Khan, she can manipulate light and create matter with it. So the way that her powers are utilized in it feels a lot like I laughed about this because I mentioned it on Patreon, but it's a lot like Frozone in The Incredibles, just using creating matter and waves and stuff and things that she can glide on and slide down and everything. It's really cool. It's this free flowing kind of well choreographed utilization of the powers that I really enjoyed. And it's an interesting balance to strike with that, because when you have a teenage character, she's in high school in this movie, when you have this teenage character in these big like set pieces where, you know, the movie has to communicate that she is potentially in mortal danger, obviously, but also have it be this fun, like, oh, teenager thing. That's an interesting balance to strike. And I think the movie does a good job of doing that. Like, I never felt like incredibly like scared for her or anything, although she is put into very perilous situations that I think it was a good balance. In terms of that choreography and fight stunt design and everything, I do think that the camera movement was a little bit erratic in some places, so much so that just occasionally, like this was maybe 2 or 3 parts, it just felt like a little bit hard to recognize like what was happening and in terms of like to keep track of it. So it was a little bit erratic. I kind of wish that it would have been a little bit more stabilized there in terms of camera movement and keeping an eye on like the action that's on screen. But that's a minor complaint there. Some other things about this movie that I didn't like. I'll talk more about them in the spoiler review, of course, but it did feel like, to the movie's credit, it didn't feel as hampered in post-production as I expected it to be. That's what I mean when I say that I expected it to be a train wreck, is that I expected the movie not to have like the best or most coherent things in the like in the initial cut, and then not having the resources in post-production to tidy it up. Maybe that's why some of that choreography didn't work for me and was a little bit erratic for me. But on a bigger scale, I was expecting it to be like nonsensical, just like cutting corners in the editing because they didn't have the resources or anyone to do anything to really tidy it up. There's a little bit of that. There is just a little bit of that. There are a couple of big things in the kind of end of the movie that I felt like, on one hand, one thing was it is extremely shoehorned in, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb, and it kind of just feels a little bit out of place and not adequately set up. And then the other thing is like, it is kind of comical how silly it is in terms of the resolution of certain plot lines and how conflicts are resolved in this movie. It feels like it's a little bit empty. Like I'll expand on that a lot in spoilers and be more specific, but I think that there were some narrative issues in this movie that it kind of made me laugh in a couple of very inopportune moments, and at the expense of some very big events in the movie that should have had more impact, but didn't have that much impact for me, because it just didn't land for me. It felt very, very silly because it didn't connect. The resolution of those things didn't connect, or were left kind of unfinished or unfinished really. So those are some of the issues I had. As far as the villain is concerned, played by Zawe Ashton, I enjoyed this villain, and I say that kind of with an asterisk. I'm in a weird place with this villain. I can't remember her name, but she basically, her whole thing is that she is a Kree who is she's very angry with Captain Marvel because of the state of her home planet, the Kree's home planet that she's from. So she is on this kind of vendetta against Captain Marvel, who she calls the Annihilator, but she has a deeper thing. She's trying to preserve her planet. Her name is Dar-Ben. And so she's trying to preserve her planet, and by doing that, she's basically taking resources from other planets. The way that this is represented is pretty interesting and unique and cool. I don't know if I would say unique. Honestly, I don't know if I would say unique. I should take that back because it is very reminiscent of the blue sky beam issue that was in all the comic book movies, like in the early phases of the MCU, and across the board, any comic book movie, like the blue beam sky thing. It's kind of similar to that, but it's just a resource-based thing. So it's interesting. I like the motivation. I think that it's interesting that we're dealing with a character she's a villain. She's willing to kill and decimate and everything, but it is all in service of her people that she's leading. And it is from this vendetta and vindictive ideology that she has, that she holds on to, at least from her experience with Captain Marvel, which is interesting stuff. What I also appreciate, and I think that this is due to the hour and 45-minute runtime, is that the movie doesn't hamper, doesn't occupy too much time really diving into the characterization of her. And I know that maybe sounds a little blasphemous, but it also kind of harkens back to earlier, like phase 1 and phase 2 Marvel Cinematic Universe, but in a more positive way, because those early movies, there was a consistent problem of villains being kind of plain and a little light, basically, and not being well designed or drawn in terms of characterization and motivation and everything. Like, there was a little bit of that, but I always had a hard time kind of buying into it. That's one of the reasons why Infinity War, in my opinion, was phenomenal, because that is a Thanos movie, and you know everything that he wants to do. And you know all of his motivations, you know his pain, you know his specific like psychosis and everything. It's great. Here with this character, she is kind of similar to Thanos in that respect, but also she has like a specific goal. So that's respectable. That's good. That's solid. She also is, I believe she has like Ronan the Accuser's like staff and everything that she uses as a weapon. So she's kind of reminiscent of that character from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Of course, her being a Kree is also helpful to that, because I think that's the same species that Ronan the Accuser was. But anyway, so the other thing that I really liked about the villain, and something that I wish would have been more present in the movie, was, and this is strictly like an aesthetic thing, but her home planet of Hala. She is like the scenes where we see her kind of in her home planet, on her home planet. This is a planet that the sun is burning out. It's very, very limited resources. Air isn't breathable or anything. But just like the shots of this of the entire planet and the people in it was so dark and gloomy, but it also was so reminiscent of like the set design and the production design of like Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. That kind of dark and I don't know if I say grungy, but kind of like I don't know, dark and rainy. Not even rainy because it's droughty here, but it's very dark and misty, basically. Not even misty. I don't know, foggy. But anyway, it's kind of like Blade Runner 2049 if like there were no like neon lights or anything. It's just very dark, and I don't know, the design was really cool. That's really what I'm getting at. So I appreciate that the villain wasn't overwritten or over situated or anything. Like we know her powers, we know her goals, and we know why she needs to be stopped, and we know where she's going to be, where the team is going to intercept her and everything, which is one of my other issues with the movie. There is an extended sequence, and I'll expand on it in spoilers, of course, but there's an extended sequence about halfway through the movie where the team goes to a planet that the inhabitants of that planet, like I will just say, it becomes a musical. there is like a musical number because the planet's inhabitants, their chief language is through song. And it's a bizarre set piece and it's a bizarre environment. And there's some character stuff with Captain Marvel there that is interesting, I guess, but it also just feels kind of out of place and it doesn't really land like the not necessarily whimsical portion of it, but it's like it's this weird like over the top thing that doesn't really mesh well with the style that has been present. It's almost like James Gunn was on hand to give notes for how to do this particular section of the movie. And it's weird. It's a weird outlier for the movie. And the fact that it comes so soon after like a big, like dramatic set piece, feels a little bit discombobulating there. And then also the resolution of that just didn't work for me. I'll talk about that in spoilers, of course. So I will say that as a fan of cats, Goose the cat is enjoyable in this movie. I did see a meme that was going around that was like, it's happened again, and it shows the Goose poster for Captain Marvel and then the Goose poster for the Marvels, and it's very, very clearly a different orange cat that's been cast in it. So it was like a side by side of those two posters and and like Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle as Rhodey, kind of side by side. So that was pretty funny, but I will say that all cats are beautiful. So, but I will say that I kind of prefer the Captain Marvel version of Goose, but, Goose in this movie is fun. He doesn't steal the limelight too much or anything, but there is some pretty interesting, fun utilizations of the Flurgan power, at hand there. Another thing that I can touch on in non-spoilers is that the family of Kamala Khan is like, her parents are fun, and I like that there is this kind of fun comedic back and forth with them and like Fury and them and Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau, because at the heart of it, it's all them being concerned about Kamala's safety, because of the entanglement, she needs to be with Monica and Captain Marvel as they go across the galaxy to save the universe, basically. And it's all like, that's really well done. I think that that's really fun and interesting and enjoyable and entertaining. Her brother, though, like, I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch Ms. Marvel, but his performance, I don't even want to dog the guy's performance or anything, but basically, anytime he did like his like comedic thing, like 8 out of 10 times it didn't work for me. Like, it just felt very forced and it didn't really land for me the way that the movie wanted it to land for me. So that was a little bit of a ding on the movie for me. Nothing against that actor, it just didn't land for me. So I may be exhausting my non-spoiler review. Overall, I rated this movie 3 stars out of 5, with a heart on Letterboxd. Follow me on Letterboxd at Obsessive Viewer. And yeah, I do think that it's an enjoyable movie. It's not something that is really going to bring me back into being like a big Marvel fanboy or anything, because I kind of think that ship kind of sailed with really Spider-Man No Way Home. But I mean, I'll see all the movies, of course, but it's not hooking me anymore. And I don't know if part of that is me being, a grown-up now, or just being older, or what, but it's just not doing it for me. So I don't know. But on Letterboxd, I wrote, here's my blurb that I wrote. Better than I expected it to be. It's more on the light and fun side of the MCU, with the 3 stars sharing strong chemistry and bringing good energy to a relatively more briskly paced movie. Some things didn't work for me. There's a place the Marvels travel to at one point that includes a bizarre gimmick that doesn't really land. Certain big events throughout the movie are either left unresolved or come up suddenly with no time to really ponder their implications or feel the tension the movie wants you to feel. Still, it's an enjoyable MCU movie, which at this stage of the multiverse saga is a breath of fresh air. And so I know that basically reiterates a lot of stuff that I have already said, but nonetheless, it's what I said on there. And the other thing that I didn't even touch on in the non-spoiler stuff was that Aman Vellani, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her name, and I greatly apologize with my voice cracking, but this is her debut film. This is her first feature film. She was of course in Ms. Marvel, but she was phenomenal. She was great, and one of the things that at the outset of the movie that I was nervous about was I was very, very nervous that the whole shtick of her being like a massive Captain Marvel fan, I was really worried that was going to wear thin incredibly quickly. Because it's just right from the outset, it's like clearly like she's a teenager. Like her room is adorned with a bunch of Captain Marvel swag, and like she's writing like fan fiction and stuff. That's part of where the really fun like visual kind of catch up the audience segment is. It's kind of this comic book visualization that's really interesting and fun. But throughout the movie, she is just continuously starstruck by Captain Marvel. And that's something that I was afraid was going to be like overbearing and overdone. And to both her credit and to Brie Larson's credit, and also to Tiana Paris's what is the credit? And the movie overall, that never wears thin. It's always fun. It's always entertaining. It's always something interesting, and it's well placed in the scenes. Furthermore, it is also something that kind of binds the trio together, and it's something that I think is really interesting about this movie. And one of the reasons why it stands out a bit is that we have Kamala Khan being starstruck and incredibly like fangirling out over Captain Marvel. Meanwhile, we have Monica Rambeau, who grew up idolizing Captain Marvel from a young age. She was her aunt Carol growing up and everything. And then Captain Marvel leaves when Monica Rambeau is a young girl and never comes back. So that is something that there's like tension between Monica Rambeau and Captain Marvel. And also there is that background of Monica Rambeau idolizing Captain Marvel the same way that Kamala Khan is idolizing her and everything. And then if they like those two separate kind of character traits for Monica and Kamala are further kind of they further kind of enrichen, is that a word? I don't know. Further make Captain Marvel's character arc sing a bit louder and works a lot better, because throughout the movie, and it's not just here, it's also with her relationship with the Skrulls and the Kree and with Nick Fury, everything. There's like this through line throughout the movie that's about like what Captain Marvel means to like the universe, and it's represented in her the way that Monica idolized her as a child, the way that Kamala is currently idolizing her, and how the kind of pressure of that weighs on Captain Marvel. Now, this is all stuff that is not, in my opinion, is unfortunately not explored really with as much depth as I would like it to, but for a mega budget MCU movie backed by Disney, like we got a fair amount of characterization in this movie in that respect, so I can't fault it too much, but I did like detect that there, and I really felt like that was something that I wasn't expecting at all, and I think that that's an interesting counter to the idea of like the kind of common idea of Captain Marvel being overpowered. It's one of the reasons, like one of the issues going into Endgame was like, why doesn't Captain Marvel just come down and just like kill Thanos? Because she's like super powered. Like she has like so much more power than all the Avengers and everything. So with Vision is, well, by that point Vision was gone. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting angle for the Captain Marvel character in this movie, and I think that it was done as well as it was ever going to be explored. So I really enjoyed that. So that should do it for my non-spoiler review. Those are my thoughts on the Marvels and non-spoilers. Like I said, I rated it 3 stars on Letterboxd. Follow me on there at Obsessive Viewer, and also follow me on TikTok at OV Podcasts, and consider signing up for Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm going to go into my spoiler review of the Marvels, and to do that, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. So stay tuned. After this clip, I'm going to be spoiling the Marvels.
She's destroying every place I call home and taking powers from us. If I don't fix this, it will be the end of everything. You got this.
I'm asking for one last fight.
All right, so spoilers on for the Marvels. Let's talk about this movie. There are a couple of issues that I have that I wanted to expand upon and everything. One of which being how empty some of the big issue, or one of the big set pieces are with it. So I don't know how much I'm going to go into, or how in depth I'll go with the spoiler section of this. So kind of winging it here, so we'll see. But one of the big things that I had that was an issue in this movie was the fact that, first of all, just the whole part where, like, the reveal that Captain Marvel is married to a prince on this planet where they sing to talk was just kind of out there and weird. That's kind of what my big one of the big, not necessarily big sticking points I had with the movie was, but basically it took me out of the movie. It didn't detract too much, but it just made me roll my eyes a little bit because it felt like the tone of that was a little bit too comedic for a movie that already established its style of comedy in terms of it being this kind of comedic take on like fans, not fan service, but like fandom of like real people and stuff. Like Kamala Khan is a great vessel for the comedy of the movie because she is so awestruck by Captain Marvel, and that plays in really well because she then has to learn how to work with Captain Marvel. And so that's where a lot of the comedy stems from, is her kind of saying like kind of goofy things on reflex and everything and being starstruck. It never got old for me. It was great. And then suddenly we're on this planet where everyone sings to talk, and it just felt just so gimmicky and weird and out of place, and it just did not land for me. So that was kind of strike one with that segment of the movie. Strike two is that I love the idea of Dar-Benn taking resources from planets. I love that idea. I think that's very good. That's very solid. I really like that idea. I think it's explored pretty well. I like how not lazy, but how kind of straightforward it is, that it's just like, okay, well, she took air from this planet, so she's going to take water from somewhere else. Oh, it happens to be the planet that I am the princess of and everything, and there's people that I care about there. Which makes sense too, because it's 99.96% water or whatever, but that's fine. So, I like the idea of her taking, like, literally just taking the resources. Like, that's good. That's solid. I even like the set pieces on that planet, the action set piece, where this is the first time that the team is really working together with their, like, power entanglement and everything. And I like the moments where, like, Kamala Khan, she is a teenager. Like I said, she's a teenager. So like when Captain Marvel tells her like, hey, don't use your powers unless we're like entangling each other and everything, she still like does it, and it's like a reflex thing. That more so happened on the Skrull kind of planet, hiding planet, basically. And that was really cool and interesting, which I'll talk about. But here on the singing planet, I enjoyed the set piece, the conflict, the battle with Darben and all of the people there. What I would say is probably the worst part of the movie for me was the fact that planet is never returned to, is never referenced again. They leave the planet. Kamala kind of makes the executive decision to have them go through the jump point, and then they crash on another planet, and they have that little like heart to heart and everything, and where Captain Marvel is kind of taken down a peg or two, and she is she's coming to terms with what happened and her ineffectiveness at preventing what happened. But it's like that planet's gone. Like that planet is just done. And they just left it there. And I'm not saying like the Marvels left it there. I mean, they did, but my problem is the movie leaves it there. There's no coming back to that. There's no resolution to that. There's no like, it's just done. And like, that just felt so sloppy. And it felt like such a weird thing for the movie to do, to basically have this big set piece that involves the decimation of an entire planet, and then we move on to the next part of the movie. Like, that just felt very weird. Like, even the Skrull sequence where she took, I think that's where she took the air from. That sequence had like the admittedly kind of perfunctory scene with Valkyrie's cameo and everything. That was another thing. Okay, let me gripe about this a little bit too. So like that had that resolution, that whole thing. That was interesting. That was fun, or not fun, but that was something that worked for me. Was that, you know, they evacuated as many as they could, but unfortunately they couldn't evacuate near anyone, like a very small amount of people. The Skrulls are already like very pissed, and they have lost any faith in Captain Marvel. They are ending it on bad terms. And then Captain Marvel's solution is like, okay, well, Valkyrie has some history, like has some experience with this kind of thing. She'll help you guys out and everything, and then we're going to go after Darben and work to stop her and everything. That at least has like a resolution to that Skrull plot line, whereas the singing planet, that I don't remember the name of it, that just doesn't get resolved in any fashion. And it sucks because that planet has like a character that Captain Marvel cares about. Even if it's a marriage of convenience, she is still an entity within that, like, that society and everything. She's respected, and like, I just don't understand why the movie just abandons all of that. Like, it's so frustrating and annoying. But back to the Skrull thing though. As much as I enjoyed that, I thought that whole set piece of evacuating them in a hurry, trying to save them and failing so many of them, that was an emotional, like just gut punch in the movie for me. I thought that was really well done. And then when the refugees from the planet are aboard the ship and they're about to go to new, oh God, I can't remember, new Thor place, new Asgard, with Valkyrie and everything. Like, I just had this thought that, like, yes, that is well done. It's good. It's solid. It's dark. It's sad. It's emotional and everything. But it's also the same damn thing that they did in Thor Ragnarok. Like, it's the same thing. It is the exact same thing. A decimated, like, planet or land, and refugees going to like it's the same thing. It is just a repeat of that. It's so while I do think that the emotion of it landed for me, I just felt like it's a little bit repetitive within the MCU, and that was a little bit annoying for me. The other thing that I kind of wish would have been more explored a little bit more fully goes back to the idea of Captain Marvel as like the central character of this movie, dealing with her kind of stature within the universe and everything as it relates to Kamala Khan's fandom of her, and Monica Rambeau's history with her, and how people view her across the galaxy and everything. There's a moment where Kamala says to a little girl, like, "Don't worry, Captain Marvel will save everyone, I promise." And I wish that was delved into a little bit more. I wish that was explored a little bit more, because the camera kind of shoots a look at Captain Marvel, or points to Captain Marvel looking at her as Kamala is telling her this. And I kind of wish that there was maybe one scene where Captain Marvel's like, "Hey, I know your heart's in the right place, but maybe don't, promise this girl that everything's like, I'm going to save everyone, because I don't know that I will." Like I'm fallible. I'm a person and everything. We're about to go massacre my husband's planet. You'll see, but I kind of wish that there was a little bit more done with that on a character level. But that's a minor complaint. It's not even, it's minor in that on that front. So the singing planet was my biggest hang up with the movie, but it's not my only issue with the movie. One of my other big issues that I kind of hinted at in the non-spoiler section was the resolution of Darbin, and how her arc ends. So she gets both of the bangles, and she uses them, and it's like no, you'll die if you do that. But before that, like this kind of weaves together a little bit. So before, like after the big battle, which I thought was fun, it was very good, it's very stylish, very well done. The way that the entanglement worked was really good. So when she gets them and she is about to go, one of the things that that Monica and Carol, I'm sorry, Captain Marvel, say, like, they have a conversation where it's and it's funny to me. It's funny because Monica's like, well, hang on, Captain Marvel, why don't you just, like, the sun is dying over there, why don't you just go and, like, restart the sun, because you're overpowered and everything. And, like, Captain Marvel has a thing where she's like, I've never done that before, I don't know if I can do that and everything. And I'm thinking, like, okay, that's interesting, sure. And then Darbin uses the stuff and then just kills herself. Like, it obliterates her. She's gone. She's dead. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it opens up a rip in time-space, or in space-time, and opens it to another universe. And then it's up to Monica to go and close it, and then she's sucked into another universe and everything. That whole thing was annoying to me, because that felt so rushed, so sudden. Like, I felt like there wasn't enough time for us to really understand the stakes of that moment. Like, it was pretty clear that, like, okay, she's going to be trapped on that side of it, and that's going to lead to some big thing in the mid-credits scene and everything. So that's fine. That's whatever. It's storytelling. But when it's just suddenly introduced, I feel like it wasn't introduced well enough, and it's just so sudden that in order for us to really catch up to what is happening on screen, and by that I mean Monica going out into space to close the gap and essentially sacrifice herself for like to prevent, like, an incursion, that happens so suddenly that while that is happening, we're still catching up. At least I was still catching up to, like, what the stakes are of what's happening, like what exactly is happening and what it means. And, like, because of that, I felt like there wasn't a near enough tension for the moment where Monica is trapped over there and sacrifices herself. And it's just such a hero's death in quotes, because she's not dead, but like in a hero's end that's just cliched and silly. Maybe not even silly, but it's cliched and expected rather. And so that didn't work for me really at all. And then one of the silliest parts for me was that the whole thing where like that's literally what Captain Marvel ends up doing. She goes and restarts the sun for Hala, and I'm like, you could have done that an hour and 40 minutes ago. You really and I understand that the movie is trying to communicate that she didn't have the confidence to do that, or she didn't think she was capable of doing that. And it wasn't until Monica Rambeau gave her the knowledge that she could potentially do that, or the confidence that she could pull it off, because she just watched her friend sacrifice herself to save the multiverse and everything. So now she can do it. But also it's like, you're like the most powerful being in the galaxy. Like you couldn't, like, I feel like it wasn't properly established why Captain Marvel didn't take that into consideration. Especially since, and here's the other thing, the other thing that I just realized while speaking right now in this moment, especially since this same freaking thing was essentially sort of done in Endgame. Or no, in Infinity War with Thor he had to restart like the cauldron to basically restart a dying star to create the thing that created Stormbreaker. Like it just feels a little bit rote at this point in the MCU. It's just rote, and it's not really up to snuff for me. It really just doesn't. It just really didn't work for me, and it just felt very silly and like it felt like an afterthought. Honestly, it felt like it was an afterthought that like, okay, well, we'll go ahead and just have her do that so that they're at least saved and everything. So I don't know, that's just something that was annoying to me. The resolution for the whole movie was fine, I guess, overall. I neglected to talk about Goose and the goose eggs and everything. The stuff on Saber Station or whatever was really fun and enjoyable. So we have where Kamala's family, or her father, is talking to the one guy, and he's like, have you thought about retirement and your 401k and like Roth IRAs and stuff? And then he's like, it's never too early and never too late and everything. He's like, how old are you? And the guy's just like 307 or whatever number. I was like, that's solid. That's really, really good. And then I really, really enjoyed, and I kind of cackled a little bit to myself when it was revealed that the solution to evacuate the station was to have all of the Flurgans swallow all of the crew of the station. I thought that was hilarious and awesome. I thought that was really, really, really great. So that stuff was really enjoyable and entertaining. So let's talk about the end of the movie, though. The final scene of the movie, I thought was such an enjoyable end to the movie, with Kamala appearing at Kate Bishop's at her place and basically doing her version of Nick Fury's scene in Iron Man, and saying like, you really thought you were the only kid superhero or whatever. So it's very much leading toward like Young Avengers or whatever, or implying that. And I thought that was great. I really did. I thought that was fantastic. The mid-credit scene, the mid-credit scene was okay. I feel like it was meant to be a big like gasp moment, with Monica waking up in a hospital bed, seeing her mother next to her. And then it being all confused because she's in another universe. And then Beast. Oh my God, what is his name? Dr. Hank. Hank Scorpio from The Simpsons. No, I'm vamping here. Because he is in the IMDb credits. So if anyone digs too deep, they're in for a surprise. Oh my God, did they take it? Oh no, that's still there. Hank McCoy, yeah, as Beast. He appears and he just basically says like, hey, yeah, you know, her vitals are fine or whatever. We're monitor. I don't remember exactly what he said, but like the biggest thing that I was surprised by with that was the fact that they got Kelsey Grammer to reprise his role, because he was Beast in the original X-Men movies. Because I kind of feel like I assume that he was like over it at that point, but it was nice to see him in the role again, and I don't know what that means for I don't know what it means for the X-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point, and I don't know if I really care at this point. But also it's a little bit lessened by the fact that we've already seen, like he even references Charles Xavier in dialogue there. And like, that's really cool. That's really interesting and everything. But we already saw like Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So it's not quite like, I know that it's different because I guess in this version, it is literally that universe. Maybe who knows? It's all kind of convoluted anyway, but, yeah, I don't know. It didn't reach me in terms of like being a big, like, oh my God, I can't believe what are the implications of this thing. It's more like okay, cool, neat. Kelsey Grammer got a paycheck. Awesome. So it didn't really have the impact that I think that the movie expected it to, or anticipated it to have on me. But maybe other people like it. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know what it means really. And that's another thing, is that at this point, the MCU in the multiverse saga really, really feels like it is just scratching, like it's throwing everything at the wall, seeing what sticks. It's in turmoil with like Jonathan Majors' whole controversy and everything, but it also seems to lack a singular vision for where it is leading and everything. So that is the underlying thing through all of these movies and all of the TV shows that I've seen of this phase or this saga and everything. So much so that when they introduce something that should be a big event thing or a big gasp moment, like Hank McCoy popping up, like Kelsey Grammer popping up as him, I feel like, okay, that is something that feels more like fan service than it does feel like any implications for the future of the MCU. And that's a bummer, because I want to be wowed. I want to be surprised. I want to be thinking about like, what does this mean? I want my nerd brain to really be receptive to these big set pieces and things, but I'm just not. So I don't know. There's always the possibility that, that the MCU will kind of come back and bring me back into the fold and make me interested in it. But I don't know. It's not really doing it for me these days. So I don't know. At the end of the day, the Marvels is fun. It's entertaining. I liked it, especially the kind of, it's a fun sci-fi action comic book movie, which I'm always game for. But it's not wowing me on like the MCU fanboy level that I want to be wowed at. So we'll see what happens next in the MCU, but here I think is just more of a solid outing. And yeah, so that's my review of the Marvels. Let me know what you thought of this movie and my review and everything. Hope you guys enjoyed this solo review. I haven't done like a long form solo review on Obsessive Viewer in a like, I think I've only done this once, and that is episode 300, and that wasn't necessarily even a full review and everything. I'm not I'm very accustomed to doing solo things because Patreon and anthology and everything, but this is new. This is interesting. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. So let's go ahead and we'll kind of go to our next review. So here in this section, I'm going to do a non-spoiler review for the movie Quiz Lady, which is currently streaming on Hulu. And to bring us into that, again, non-spoiler review, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer for Quiz Lady.
Yes?
Hi, I have some bad news.
We lost your mom.
What?
Sorry, that was terrible phrasing. I meant we don't know where she is.
Oh, I think your sister's here.
Annie, it's finally happened. Oh my God, it's okay. It's okay. I'm here. We're orphans. Oh my God, you're orphan Annie. Oh
She's
my
not
God.
dead. She ran away. Tough bitch.
And yum. Your mom owes me 80 grand. When you have it, you'll get your dog back.
I don't have any money. You can sell your eggs. I mean, it's not like you're using them.
All right, so that was from the trailer for Quiz Lady. Like I said, it is streaming on Hulu right now. And the premise, according to IMDb, is a game show-obsessed woman and her estranged sister work together to help cover their mother's gambling debts. The director for this movie was Jessica Yu. She previously directed episodes of Citadel, This Is Us, and The Morning Show. And writer for this movie was Jen D'Angelo, which, interestingly enough, she is one of the writers for Totally Killer, which is a movie that just came out on Amazon Prime. I think I talked about it in a page in a Potpourri section in a previous episode, but I definitely did an immediate reaction review on Patreon. And yeah, on Patreon. So anyway. Cast for this movie includes Awkwafina, Sandra Oh, Will Ferrell, Jason Schwartzman, and Tony Hale. This is an R-rated comedy that is about, like the plot summary says, these two estranged sisters who work together to try to get money to help cover their mother's gambling debts. And it's solid. It's kind of cute and enjoyable. The energy of it is one of the big things about it that I really liked was Awkwafina is playing somewhat against type. She is this kind of she's proven herself to be a very talented actress. When she plays against like that type that she's usually in, she's usually like this chaotic presence in movies, and that whole shtick kind of wore a little bit thin after a few performances of hers. I can't really think off the top of my head particularly what ones, but like it kind of seemed like she was a little bit. She was getting dangerously close to being typecast as that kind of chaotic friend in a comedy movie. So to see a comedy where she is playing a more straight-laced, introverted, and kind of socially awkward character was very, very refreshing. And she clearly has the range to pull that off. She does a phenomenal job in this movie. I really enjoyed her performance, and the chemistry she has with Sandra Oh is really solid. Sandra Oh plays that kind of chaotic character archetype, but not overbearingly so. She kind of plays a little bit heightened and a little bit big. She goes a little bit big with her performance, but it's tailored by a solid script that knows how to utilize the characters in pretty fun ways. So Sandra Oh, her character, I don't have the character names. I should. It's Anne and Jenny. I think so. Yeah. So anyway, Sandra Oh's character has this whole thing where she wants to be a life coach, and she decides to take Anne, played by Awkwafina, under her wing to basically prove that she can be like a life coach and everything. That's not the main point of the plot or anything, but that is a significant part of it. And I like that Sandra Oh plays the character as as someone who is very not adjusted to how people should act, I guess. Like she's very heightened, she's very naive, I guess. or she's not accustomed to questioning what the consequences of her actions are. So she does all of these chaotic things. Like she films Awkwafina answering questions while she's watching the quiz show that she watches every day and everything. And that causes like a viral sensation, and that is a big thing for the plot to move the plot along and everything. And so there's a lot of kind of chaotic energy by Sandra Oh's performance as Jenny, but it's stuff that is all in service to, in her own twisted way, uplifting Anne and bringing her out of her shell and helping kind of create situations or opportunities for Anne to thrive in her life and everything. So that's really good. The thing that I kind of felt was a little bit lacking with the movie was the estrangement of the two characters of the sisters wasn't quite as estranging as I would have liked it to be. And by that I mean that they're estranged in that they haven't talked in a while, and they're brought together because the nursing home facility that their mother is a resident of calls to tell them, like you heard in the trailer, calls to tell them that they have misplaced her. And I kind of thought that it was going to be like a road trip movie where they are trying to find their mother or whatever. That's not the case. It's just them trying to get Anne to Philadelphia to be a part of the quiz show that she watches obsessively every single day. And that's all in an effort to win money to cover their mother's gambling debt, because her bookie has contacted them and threatened Awkwafina's dog. So that's kind of the basic plot and everything. The movie is, or at least it feels like it's a little bit long in the tooth. It takes a while to get to kind of the big thing. It kind of takes a while to get to the to the big finishing thing of the quiz show aspect of it. That's what I was going for. So sorry. It takes a long while to get to that portion of the movie. Once it does get to that, it's pretty entertaining. It pays off really well. And it's solid. I don't know how else I can really talk about it and non-spoilers or anything, but there's some interesting supporting characters. Tony Hale plays this proprietor of a Philadelphia inn that the sisters are seeking accommodations in, and it is a Ben Franklin themed hotel where Tony Hale is dressed up as Ben Franklin. And like that leads to some pretty fun, like quirky stuff and everything. There is reference to Paul Rubens. He's in the cast list, so he makes an appearance in the movie. I will say that from everything I can find, this is his final film role, because he passed away this year. It was nice to see him on film. It was interesting. The context is kind of morbid because of him having passed away this year, but I won't say any more about that. Jason Schwartzman plays this character who is a regular contestant on the quiz show that Awkwafina's character is going to basically going on to win the money and everything. He's this entertaining kind of like false nice person, like fake nice phony kind of person. It's fun. It's in his wheelhouse. It's entertaining and everything. And Will Ferrell, finally, I love Will Ferrell. I think he does a great job as kind of this kind of goofy host of this quiz show and everything. And there's some nice kind of tender moments with him later in the movie that I really enjoyed. So overall, Quiz Lady is an entertaining movie. I will say this before I get into my overall thoughts. I tweeted this hoping to manifest this in Hollywood circles and everything. But basically, this is an R-rated comedy. And my thought, anytime I watch an R-rated comedy from a studio, is that all the time. They're like, here's what I tweeted. I'm just going to go ahead and read the freaking tweet because it's so irritating, but here's what I tweeted. Okay. I wish the trend of having a psychedelic drug trip sequence in any and every R-rated comedy would die out. It's so overplayed that anytime I see it, I just assume it was something the studio forced into the production because of some market research data saying it's important. And yeah, that's I had the reason that I paused here is that I pulled up the tweet and then I saw that I had like some tweets like responses have been hidden. And I was like, what? And so I like did the like show tweet and everything. And someone had responded and said, yeah, I always enjoy psychedelics from Ronnie Mushrump on Instagram. He has the best in the world. Try it. Okay. Like whatever. That's all right. Jesus. Okay. Anyway, so it's clearly like a spam thing, but anyway, yeah. So overall, I thought that Quiz Lady was an entertaining R-rated comedy on Hulu. Like it's a kind of straight to streaming platform movie. I don't think it's a waste of time. I think you'll like, if you like that kind of movie, you'll enjoy it. It's not like over the top quirky, but the characterization of Anne and her chemistry with Jenny, the chemistry between Awkwafina and Sandra Oh is really solid and carries the movie really well. So those are my thoughts on Quiz Lady. Let me know what you thought of it if you do see it, and let me know if you're going to see it and everything. So that is my review. I am going to go into a quick potpourri section, which if this is your first time listening, potpourri is the section of the episode where we close out things, talking about things that we've watched lately, things that we're looking forward to, anything we want, as long as it smells good. I have a few things that I'm going to bring up kind of rapid fire. A couple of things that I'm not really going to go into much detail about because it's planning for the future, but basically I'm going to go ahead and go into my own little brief potpourri section. So, first up for potpourri is The Haunting of Hill House. Yes, this show premiered on Netflix 5 years ago, and my dumbass is finally watching it. It is spectacular. Mike Flanagan is a master storyteller. He's phenomenal. This show, I'm 3 episodes in. I'm going to be doing Patreon recordings of Patreon reviews starting in January at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. This is my official announcement that I'm going to be doing Flanagan Fridays. So starting the second week of January, I'm going to start reviewing week to week episodes of The Haunting of Hill House. I already have 3 in the can, ready to go and scheduled for posting. So, anyway, I'm really, really enjoying the show. It is such an intensely creepy, but kind of profound exploration of family dynamics, grief, and what I'm finding is like extrasensory perception stuff. It's really interesting. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's awesome. So that's all I'll say about it now. But once again, I will be reviewing it on Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. So please go sign up and check those out when they post in January. Second up that I'm going to bring up for potpourri is another thing that I'm going to be talking about on Patreon in January. Foundation Season 2 on Apple TV Plus. I reviewed every episode of Foundation Season 1 on Patreon, like last year, the year before, whenever it aired. And I thought it was okay. I think it's been a while, but I had some kind of misgivings with it and everything. It's an adaptation of Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, obviously, and it's made by David S. Goyer, and there is, the farther I got away from season 1, the more I just kind of became a little bit soured towards season 1 specifically because like I haven't read much Asimov. I've just read I, Robot and the first Foundation novel. But what I've read of it, it is like really good. Obviously, he's a classic sci-fi writer, but it's really good, like intellectual sci-fi. It's sci-fi that really kind of has something to say. And I love that about it. That's my favorite kind of science fiction. Foundation is kind of making it into a sort of blockbustery, sort of weird, like set piece blockbuster kind of thing, kind of show. And it just doesn't really feel like it really captures what was interesting to me, at least about the first novel. So that's where I was in season 1. Having watched 2 episodes of season 2 of Foundation, it's not off to a great start. The show jumps ahead significantly in the timeline, so it's like 100 years in the future. I will commend it that the first episode does give like it was a while since I had watched season 1, and there's a good it's good to jump back in season 2. Like I didn't feel like I needed to rewatch season 1 by any stretch. But it's kind of riddled with cliched sci-fi storytelling, like really like empty suspense moments and set pieces that just in 2 episodes, there's been like 2 or 3 things where it's like I was rolling my eyes at how kind of cliched it was. And like there's like one of the opening scenes of the season is Lee Pace, who is like one of the emperors. There's an assassination attempt, and it's so weird. Like it turns into this goofy choreographed like action, like hand-to-hand combat sequence where he's like naked and he's fighting off all of these assassins and everything. And he's like very, no pun intended, he's very cocky about it. He's very over the top. And I'm like, what the hell is Lee Pace doing in this scene? Like it is just so over the top and weird. So Foundation season 2, the first 2 episodes have not hooked me. We'll see. But once again, I will be reviewing each episode for better or worse in January, in the early to 2024, because I'm going to be doing weekly things. So where on Fridays I have Flanagan Fridays, starting in 2024. On Saturdays I'm going to have Sci-Fi Saturday, and kicking that off with 10 weeks of me reviewing Foundation week to week. Once again, I already have 2 posts ready to go and posted and scheduled and everything. So those will start coming out in January. So that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Here's the kind of funny thing that I thought, like, here's the thing, a little peek behind the curtain. I am hoping that I'm going to be like, I'm very motivated right now to work harder at getting like all of the podcasts and everything out and marketing it and doing social media stuff and everything as much as I can. That's part of the reason why I want to go week to week with Obsessive Viewer, just to get it out there and maybe get some more listeners and everything, and you know, get the word out there, because I'm really proud of what we do here at all of Obsessive Viewer podcasts and on the Patreon and everything. And that's one of my goals for 2024, is to kind of grow the listener base and grow the Patreon feed and grow the Patreon listener base. And here's the thing, like having scheduled like 6 posts for January already, here's the thing, like my jokey thing that I thought was that I don't know what's going to make people flock to Patreon more. Me reviewing a TV show that came out 5 years ago, or me reviewing a TV show on Apple TV Plus that no one really seems to be watching, like half a year after it aired its season. So I don't know. But anyway, hopefully if you're listening to this, you're interested. If you've listened this far and enjoyed what I'm saying, consider checking out Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm going to round out this episode with a final part of my Patreon segment, and that is me talking about When Evil Lurks, which is available to stream on Shudder. It is this really, really interesting. I watched it on, I think, Halloween. I did an immediate reaction recording of it as well. So check that out on Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Sorry, I keep saying that. But anyway, When Evil Lurks is it's a movie. I'll read the plot summary courtesy of IMDb. In a remote village, two brothers find a demon-infected man just about to give birth to evil itself. They decide to get rid of the body only to end up unintentionally spreading chaos. And my God, this movie blew my mind. It was so good. It is such an interesting, it was such a unique, Argentinian. It's an Argentinian film. It's such a unique spin on like demon possession movies, which is a subgenre of horror that I've never really been a big fan of. Check out my review of The Exorcist Believer. But this movie was such a unique spin on it. Just like the plague aspect of it, there's like, it feels like this plague effect of demonic possession. And there are like key lines of dialogue throughout it where the characters allude to a massive, like, not extinction level event, but like a massive, like a massive plague of demonic possession, and how like the government has to step in, and how churches and religion have faltered and like died out entirely. It's really, really unique. And the set pieces, the kind of gruesomeness of it is so like immediately violent, but not over the top violent, but also unforgiving. Like it is so bleak and emotionally affecting that I was just so enraptured by it. It is phenomenal. It might make my top 10 at the end of the year. It is a phenomenal horror movie. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's When Evil Lurks. It's on Shudder. I wrote on Letterboxd, I said, very unique and bleak possession demonic horror movie. The characters make dumb choices, but they're always reactionary, and it feeds well into the tension of the movie. Gruesome and unforgiving violence and horror that pays off the overall bleak storyline well in the end. So those are my thoughts on When Evil Lurks. Really, really loved it. Like I said, it's on Shudder for your viewing pleasure. Highly, highly recommend it. So that is it. That is it for Patreon. Or not Patreon, Jesus. I've said that word so many times because I'm trying to promote it throughout this episode, but that is it for episode 401 of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening this far and for listening to the show and everything. You can follow me on Letterboxd, Twitter /X, whatever the hell it's called now, Blue Sky, and Threads, and Instagram, all at Obsessive Viewer. Follow me on TikTok at OV Podcasts, and what other social medias are there? I don't know, but follow the Facebook page, facebook.com/The Obsessive Viewer, and check out the other shows. Tower Junkies, all about Stephen King. Check that out, towerjunkiespod.com, and Anthology, which is my solo Twilight Zone podcast. Check out anthologypod.com. So that'll do it for this very new and experimental episode of The Obsessive Viewer, just a solo episode on my part. Hopefully I did it justice, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought, and yeah, once again, final thing for final plug for Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I post a ton of stuff there. Almost 700 posts are on there right now, and it's just going to grow. I'm hitting the ground running, going to be doing a ton of stuff in 2024. Can't wait. So check that out, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. That's it. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. And now, enjoy this short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. For the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, such as early access to episodes, TV, book, and movie reviews and reaction recordings, commentary tracks, and Patreon potpourri episodes, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. Is that feeling of hopelessness in terms of in terms of being in an impossible situation that you cannot work yourself out of. Like it is that kind of just torment of being unable to finesse your way out of a life or death situation. And that's where I think that this story really excels. So let me start off by saying that this story is like the fear of it, the fear center of it is phenomenal.
This podcast was edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find links to all of our shows at ObsessiveViewer.com/podcasts. For exclusive bonus content, including reviews, commentaries, and B-roll episodes, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.